extracorporeal membrane oxygenation for severe acute respiratory distress syndrome. Definition.
Sickle cell anemia is
Is
an
a technique
inherited
for
blood
providing
disorder
life
that
support
is
in
characterized
case the
by
natural
painful
lungs are failing
vaso-occlusive
and are not
cries for which
able
there
to
are few
maintain a
treatment
sufficient
options.
oxygenation of the body organ system.
VA ECMO is often performed using centrally placed cannulas, meaning that the cannulas are placed in the great vessels in close proximity to the heart. This animation shows highly oxygenated blood from the ECMO circuit being returned to the patient through an arterial cannula placed in the patient's ascending aorta. With extreme cardiac dysfunction on ECMO support, if the heart is not
Sickle
beating
cell
and
disease
the
is a
aortic
blood
valve
disorder
is not
that is
opening,
inherited from
blood
both
being
parents.
pumped through this cannula
This disorder
provides
is more common in
100%
certain
of the
ethnic
patient's
groups,
blood flow.
such as African
In this
Americans,
scenario, there's no
Arabs,
mixing of the
Greeks,
two circulations,
Italians,
since
Latin,
no
and Native
circulatory
Americans.
support is being provided by the
Normal
native
red
heart.
blood cells are very flexible
However,
and are
as the heart
circular in
recovers
shape,
and
resembling
begins
a
to
donut.
beat, the
Their
aortic valve
flexibility and
opens
shape
and
allow
blood
them to
flow
travel
from the
freely
native
through small
circulation
blood vessels
now
called
mixes with
capillaries.
blood exiting the
In
centrally
persons
placed
with sickle
arterial
cell
cannula.
disease, the red blood
The
cells
composition
become
of the blood
crescent or
distal to that
sickle-shaped
mixing
and
cloud
also
will
become
depend on the
inflexible.
relative outputs of each of the two
The abnormal
circulatory
cells stick
systems.
inside the capillaries.
In this
blocking
scenario,
flow
blood
to vital
sampled from
organs.
most regions of the body would generally
Persons with
have a
sickle
similar
cell anemia
composition.
can have symptoms,
The exception may be
such
the
as yellow
coronary
appearing
arteries,
eyes and skin,
which, due to their
pale
proximal
skin,
takeoff from
delayed
the
growth,
ascending aorta,
bone and joint
may be
pain,
primarily
increased risk
perfused by
for
blood
infections,
exiting the left
development of
ventricle,
leg ulcers,
and not by blood
eye
leaving
damage,
the ECMO cannula.
anemia, and
The
damage to
perfusion
the
of
organs
coronary
affected by the
arteries
obstruction.
with adequately oxygenated blood can be problematic during VA ECMO support, even with centrally placed cannulas. Care should be taken to adequately oxygenate blood traversing the aortic valve if the lungs are capable.
Years of age with sickle cell anemia were randomly assigned to receive oral
Application
or
in medicine.
placebo for 9 to
Was an
24
adaptation
months.
of conventional
primary
cardiopulmonary
endpoint
bypass
was the rate
technique
of
and introduced in the
vaso-occlusive
treatment
crisis,
of
a
severe
composite
acute
of
respiratory
painful
distress
crisis or
syndrome
acute chest syndrome.
ARDS in the 1917.
Pros and cons. The initial reports of the use of ECMO in ARDS patients were quite enthusiastic. However, in the following years, it became clear that ECMO was only of benefit in newborns with acute respiratory failure in an rate with ECMO survival rates of 80%.
WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, also known as extracorporeal life support, is an extracorporeal technique of providing prolonged cardiac and respiratory support to persons whose heart and lungs are unable to provide an adequate amount of gas exchange or perfusion to sustain life. The technology for ECMO is largely derived from cardiopulmonary bypass, which provides shorter-term support. This intervention has mostly been used on children, but it is seeing more use in adults with cardiac and respiratory failure. ECMO works by removing blood from the person's body and artificially removing the carbon dioxide and oxygenating red blood cells. Generally, it is used either post-cardiopulmonary bypass or in late-stage treatment of a person with profound heart and or lung failure.
Issue in Ecuador. In adult patients with ARDS, two large randomized controlled trial RCTs published in 1979 and 1994 failed to show an advantage of ECMO over conventional treatment. Survival rates were only 10% and 33% respectively in the ECMO groups.
A vaso-occlusive crisis is a common painful complication of sickle cell anemia in adolescents and adults. Sickle cell anemia, most common in those of African, Hispanic, and Mediterranean origin, leads to sickle cell crisis when the circulation of blood vessels is obstructed by
in
sickle
intensive
red
care
blood
medicine,
cells, causing
extracorporeal
ischemic
membrane
injuries.
oxygenation is an extracorporeal technique of providing both cardiac and respiratory support oxygen to patients whose heart and lungs are so severely diseased or damaged that they can no longer serve their function. Initial cannulation of a patient receiving ECMO is performed by a surgeon or anesthetist, and maintenance of the patient is the responsibility of the perfusionist or ECMO specialist, who gives 24/7 monitoring care for the duration of the ECMO treatment. Types. There are several forms of ECMO, the two most common of which being veno-arterial and veno-venous. In both modalities, blood drained from the venous system is oxygenated outside of the body.
The rate of vaso-occlusive increases event per person
Conclusion.
here was
ECMO technology as well as conventional treatment of adult ARDS have undergone further improvement in conventional treatment. Lung protective ventilation strategies were introduced and ECMO was made safer by applying EPA-encoded equipment, membranes and tubing.
Athletes with sickle cell trait have special considerations before and during their workout. Athletes can unknowingly predispose themselves to exertional sickling by beginning exercise without proper hydration, while physically exhausted, overheated, or while fighting off illness. Athletes with any of these risk
Acute
factors
adult and
should be
infant
encouraged to sit
respiratory
out or
distress
perform
syndrome.
a reduced workout.
Acute respiratory distress
Red
syndrome
blood
is a
cells
medical
deliver
condition
oxygen to the
occurring in
body's
critically
tissues
ill
through the
patients,
circulatory system.
characterized by
The
widespread
cells are
inflammation in
disc-shaped
the
and
lungs.
flexible, and can
ARDS
squeeze
is
into
not a
small
particular
capillaries.
disease, rather, it is
During
a clinical
regulated physical
phenotype.
exercise, the red blood cells in an athlete with sickle cell trait can deliver oxygen normally. Under stress from intense physical exertion, the red blood cells in an athlete with sickle cell trait can no longer hold on to oxygen. These blood cells change from their flexible disc shape to a rigid sickle shape.
Which may be triggered by various pathologies such as trauma, pneumonia and sepsis. If this is your first visit to our channel, subscribe here for more health videos and
significantly lower among those who received Presilgra than among those who received placebo. There were no significant between-group difference in the safety findings.
These are normal red blood cells. They're soft, smooth, and round, and can easily move through the body. They contain a protein called hemoglobin, which is responsible for carrying oxygen from your lungs to all the tissues in your body. So, we all have 2 sets of every gene in our body, one from each parent. People with sickle cell trait have one gene that makes sickle hemoglobin and one gene that makes normal hemoglobin. People with sickle cell disease receive the sickle cell gene from both parents. They have more complications because they don't have any normal hemoglobin. It is important to note that everyone who is here today has sickle cell trait, not sickle cell disease. It is also important to point out that sickle cell trait does not turn into sickle cell disease. Sickle cell trait is a common condition. It mainly affects people of African descent, but it can occur in any other person as well. About 1% of basic military trainees test positive for sickle cell trait. Do you want to be a parent someday?
Thank you.